Welcome to the Roy Morgan Weekly Update. President Trump's decision to impose worldwide tariffs, including 10% on Australian exports to the US, has created a negative reaction amongst many Australians and is proving a clear positive, though, for the ALP. Although most of this week's polling was undertaken before the impact of Donald Trump's tariffs, the Roy Morgan poll shows the Albanese government strengthening its lead over the coalition, with under 4 weeks until election day and early voting starting in only 2 weeks. If a federal election were held now, the ALP would be returned to government with an increased majority. The ALP on 53.5%, up 0.5% just from a week ago, ahead of the LNP coalition on 46.5% on a two-party preferred basis. That's according to the latest Roy Morgan survey. The Roy Morgan survey in the first week of March was the first poll to pick up the shift in support towards the ALP and away from the coalition, and this trend has continued to build. The coalition's political mistakes were on display in recent days, like the opposition leader Peter Dutton announcing his main residence would be at Kirribilli House in Sydney, followed by the working from home backflip, ditching the controversial policy to force Commonwealth public servants back to the office. He also walked back a commitment to slash 40,000 public service jobs to cut spending, with the coalition to now rely on attrition and not replacing people rather than slashing jobs. And the ALP government's attempt to tie Dutton closely to US President Donald Trump also appears to be working. Primary support for the ALP increased 0.5% to 32.5% at the expense of the coalition, which was down 2% to 33%. That's the closest the two parties have been since mid-October 2023. Support for the Greens increased 0.5% to 13.5%. One Nation was up 0.5% to 6%, and support for other parties increased 2% to 6%. Clive Palmer's new Trumpet of Patriots Party received 1.5% support, its best result so far, while support for independents dropped 1.5% to 9%. Government confidence, whether people think the country's going in the right direction or the wrong direction, was virtually unchanged this week at 81. This indicator remains well below the neutral level of 100 because more Australians still say the country's going in the wrong direction, 52%, than say the country's going in the right direction, only 33%. Consumer confidence. ANZ Roy Morgan Consumer Confidence, which was fully interviewed by last Friday before the recent market plunges in reaction to President Trump's tariffs, improved last week, up 1.5 points to 86.8 after the federal budget. That's a second straight weekly increase. The impact on consumer confidence of the recent market moves will be captured in next week's readings. Inflation expectations dropped 0.1% to 4.6% this week, below the long-term average. So Australians now expect inflation of 4.6% over each of the next 2 years. And now, Australian business confidence, which in March declined by 2.5 points to 106. The drop came despite the Reserve Bank's decision to cut interest rates in mid-February. This results based on interviews with 1,500 businesses each month to gauge their views on their company's prospects, as well as their assessment of the broader Australian economy. The drop was driven by rising concerns about the Australian economy, particularly over the next 5 years, and more businesses reporting that their businesses are worse off financially than this time a year ago. Over the 2 months of February and March, the most confident industries were electricity, gas, water and waste, which recorded a business confidence of 143.8, financial and insurance services on 135.3, professional, scientific and technical services on 115.9, and education and training on 115.5, and rental, hiring and real estate services on 115.1. all above the national average. At the other end of the scale, we have some familiar industries, with those in wholesale trade recording the lowest business confidence at only 79.6, just below agriculture, forestry and fishing on 81.4, and they're now the only two industries with a negative reading below 100. Thanks for your interest in Roy Morgan's latest results, and I'll be back next week to bring you Australians' reactions to President Trump's worldwide tariffs and the extreme stock market moves, as well as a second full week of campaigning for next month's federal election, and the latest results for consumer confidence, inflation expectations, voting intention, and unemployment. Thanks for listening.